based on a real nightmare. It was 7 p.m. when we entered. It was 7 p.m. when we left. But 3 days had passed. It was late afternoon when Lucas, Marina, and Pedro left the office. The three had worked together for years and were completely exhausted. Pedro let out a long sigh and said, 6 hours of meetings. 6 hours. Marina adjusted her glasses and agreed. And Monday we start all over again. Lucas looked at his phone and suggested, you guys want to grab something to eat before heading home? I can't take delivery anymore. The three walked down the busy commercial street, watching the lights of establishments turning on. That's when Lucas stopped abruptly in front of a restaurant he'd never seen before. The facade was discreet, almost invisible between the other businesses. A simple sign said only, welcome. Lucas pointed at the place and asked, hey, this restaurant here, have you guys ever seen it? Marina frowned and replied, weird. I walk by here every day and never noticed it. Pedro observed the empty windows and commented, looks empty, but looks good. Want to try it? The three went inside. The door opened with the delicate sound of a bell. The interior was cozy, but there was something unsettling about the generic perfection of the place. Wooden tables, yellowish lighting, decoration that was too neutral. A soft and extremely repetitive ambient music played at low volume. There were only 5 customers in the dining room, all sitting alone at their tables. They all chewed in perfect sync, staring into the void with completely neutral faces. A waiter with a common appearance, but with a smile that was too fixed, approached immediately. His voice was pleasant but strange, as if it were being played through a speaker. He said, welcome. Table for 3? Lucas felt a chill run down his spine but ignored it. He answered, yes please. The waiter guided them to a table in the center of the room. His steps were perfectly measured, as if following invisible marks on the floor. When they sat down, the waiter handed them 3 identical menus. There were no photos, logos, or prices, just text in uniform font describing generic dishes. The waiter said with the same smile, enjoy your meal. Marina flipped through the menu and commented, this thing doesn't have any prices. Pedro agreed. No pictures of the food either. Just weird descriptions. Lucas looked around and his gaze met a woman sitting alone at a distant table. She was chewing slowly, but her eyes were fixed on him. She didn't blink, not even once. Lucas looked away, uncomfortable, and said, don't you guys think this place is kinda weird? Marina, still looking at the menu distractedly, replied, it's him? Chill. I like it. Pedro loosened his tie even more and said, relax, Lucas. We're just tired. The waiter returned. Lucas noticed he had arrived without making any footstep sounds. The man asked, have you decided? Marina answered quickly, I'll have the number 3. Pedro also decided, number 3 for me too. Lucas hesitated, looking at the menu. All the options seemed the same, just with different nonsensical names. He ended up saying, number 3 too, I guess. The waiter tilted his head slightly and said, clearly satisfied, excellent choice. While waiting for the food, Lucas looked at the wall clock behind the counter. He blinked several times, not believing what he saw. The hands moved at completely irregular speeds. Sometimes they spun too fast, then stopped completely, then moved backwards for a few seconds and then went back to moving normally. Lucas pointed discreetly and said, are you guys seeing that clock? Marina and Pedro looked briefly but showed no reaction. Pedro asked, what about it? Lucas insisted, his voice starting to sound anxious. The hands, they're moving wrong. Forward, backward, stopping. Marina gave a slight smile and spoke with a strangely calm voice. Must be broken. What's the big deal? Lucas felt a chill run down his spine. Something about Marina's voice sounded different. Flatter. More distant. He looked at his own wristwatch. The digital numbers blinked erratically. 7:47 p.m., 8:15 p.m., 7:50 p.m., 9:03 p.m. The minutes jumped without logic. Lucas raised his wrist and showed his friends. Look at my watch. But Marina and Pedro didn't seem to care. Their eyes were vacant, lost in some undefined point in the restaurant. The plates arrived. 3 perfectly identical plates with indefinable food. It wasn't meat, it wasn't pasta, it wasn't anything recognizable. Just something beige, odorless, without steam, without life. Marina and Pedro started eating immediately. Lucas watched in horror. The two moved their forks at exactly the same time. Fork up. Chewing with their mouths at the same angle. 3-second pause. Fork up again. Like programmed robots. Lucas held his fork but couldn't bring the food to his mouth. he said, his voice trembling. "You guys are eating the same way?" Marina, without looking away from her plate, asked in a neutral voice. "What do you mean?" Lucas raised his voice. "At the same time. In the same rhythm. Don't you notice?" Pedro and Marina stopped eating simultaneously. They turned their faces to Lucas at the same instant, with the same empty expression. Pedro asked, "Aren't you gonna eat?" Lucas looked at his plate. The food seemed to pulse slightly as if breathing. He pushed the plate away and said, I'm not hungry." Marina and Pedro exchanged a quick glance. Something passed between them, a silent, ancient, non-human communication. Lucas looked around and his heart raced. All the restaurant's customers were staring directly at him, all chewing in the same rhythm, all smiling slightly, no one blinking. Lucas stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair with a crash. He shouted, "We need to get out of here." Marina tilted her head in an unnatural way and said calmly, "What? Everything's fine here." Pedro repeated with the same empty intonation, "Yeah, everything's fine." Their voices sounded like distant echoes as if coming from underwater. The waiter appeared silently behind Lucas. He hadn't walked there, he was just there, too close, invading his personal space. The man asked, "Any problem with the meal?" Lucas turned abruptly and took a step back. He said firmly, "We're leaving." The waiter tilted his head to the side at an impossible angle, almost 90 degrees. He replied, "But you've barely started." Lucas grabbed Marina by the arm and tried to pull her from the chair, but she didn't move. It was as if she were welded to the seat. He shook Pedro too, desperate. "Marina, Pedro, get up. We need to leave now." Marina looked at Lucas with completely glazed eyes. She said in a voice that no longer seemed hers, "Stay with us, Lucas. It's good here. Here time doesn't pass. Here you'll never be tired. Stay." Lucas ran. He didn't know where, but he ran. He went through a side door and found himself in a long, narrow hallway. The walls were beige, generic, without decoration. Identical doors repeated infinitely. He looked back and saw the waiter, the waitress, and all the customers walking behind him. But they weren't walking normally, their bodies moved wrong. Arms swung at impossible angles. Legs bent backwards. Heads rotated 180 degrees while their bodies kept moving forward. Lucas ran faster, but the hallway seemed to stretch infinitely. The lights flickered. The time around him seemed to fold. He ran in slow motion, but sounds came fast, then slow, then distorted. He turned a corner and saw something that made his blood freeze. Marina and Pedro were being gently guided by the waiter and the waitress. Both friends walked in a trance, with empty faces, smiling slightly. They were being led toward a glass door at the end of the hallway. Lucas screamed with all the strength of his lungs. "No, Marina, Pedro." But his voice sounded muffled, distant, as if the air were too dense for sound to pass through. He ran desperately, but the hallway stretched like elastic. Every step he took, the door seemed to move further away. The clock on the wall showed impossible times. 25:87, 13 hours 99 minutes, 8 o'clock. All at the same time. Finally, Lucas reached the glass door. Through the thick, foggy glass, Lucas saw hell. A huge room the size of a gymnasium, full of perfectly aligned tables. Dozens, maybe hundreds, of people sitting, eating eternally. Their faces were empty. Some no longer had lips, just holes where the mouth should be. Others had no eyes, just dark sockets. But all continued chewing in perfect synchrony. Marina and Pedro were standing right in front of the glass door, about to enter. Their hands were already touching the doorknob. Lucas punched the glass with all his strength and yelled, "Marina, Pedro, don't go in. For God's sake, don't go in." Marina blinked. "What?" As if waking from a deep dream. She slowly turned her face to Lucas. Tears began to stream down her eyes. She whispered, her voice weak and scared, "Lucas? Where are we?" Pedro stumbled backwards, confused, holding his own head. He muttered, What's happening?" The waiter and waitress tried to hold them, but Lucas kicked the glass door with all violence. Cracked. He kicked again, and again, until the glass exploded into 1,000 pieces. Lucas grabbed Marina and Pedro by the arms and pulled with brutal force. They stumbled, fell, but got up and started running together. Behind them, the waiter, the waitress, and all the customers began to chase them. But now their bodies were falling apart. Skin peeled off, revealing something shiny and shapeless underneath. Arms elongated like tentacles. Necks stretched in spirals. Faces split in half, showing rows of teeth that didn't belong to humans. Lucas shouted without looking back, Don't look. Run. Just run. The three burst through the restaurant's front door and fell onto the sidewalk. Lucas, Marina, and Pedro were on the ground, panting, dirty, shaking. Lucas immediately turned around, expecting to see the creatures coming out of the restaurant. But there was nothing. Just an empty lot, surrounded by old, rusty fences. Grass growing in the cracks of the concrete. No restaurant. No door. No lights. Pedro, still breathless, said, What the hell was that? Marina looked around, crying compulsively. Where's the restaurant? Was here. Was. Lucas took his phone from his pocket. The screen was cracked but still working. He looked at the date and time. His face turned pale. He asked, his voice trembling, "What day is it today?" Pedro didn't understand. "What?" Lucas shouted. "What day is it today?" Marina grabbed her own phone. She looked at the screen. Her face contorted in horror. She let out a muffled scream. 3 days. Lucas, 3 days have passed. The three looked at each other, horrified. Their clothes were dirty, but they weren't the same clothes from 3 days ago. Their phones had hundreds of unread messages. Missed calls from family members. Work notifications asking where they were. Marina started crying uncontrollably. Pedro held his own head, repeating, "No, no, no, no." Lucas looked once more at the empty lot. And then he saw it. On the old fence, someone had spray painted with faded paint, "Don't go in. They steal time." The message had been there for years. No one had paid attention. In the distance, almost imperceptible, Lucas heard the delicate sound of a bell ringing. And a whisper in the wind, soft and terrible. "Welcome back. Before you go, answer me. 1. Would you enter this restaurant? Yes or no? 2. What was the scariest part for you? 3. Have you ever had a similar nightmare? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget, leave a like and subscribe for more horror stories.